What's going on, YouTube? Levi of Old Iron Off-Road, and what are we doing today? So with the release of the new electric powered Scout, my freshly strapped up man bun, and my newfound love for the EV platform, we are taking this 4.3 turbo powered Scout 800 rock crawler project, the cage. We're scrapping every bit of it. I just can't in good conscience put together anything that is going to be detrimental to the environment. Gotcha. No, we're not going to do that because that's a load of crap. But we are going to move forward with this project today. We've actually taken some time off camera to get a few things dialed in on this project. As you can see, we've got the bed liner inside of this guy looking so fresh and clean. We've actually sprayed a couple of coats of lizard skin and we've top coated with some Raptor. And if you're not familiar with the Raptor process, yes, you can top coat with a urethane base, pretty much anything. You actually throw whatever color paint you want. And I don't know that it's going to translate on camera, but I actually tried something a little different. We've got some like machine gray splattered in with the black. I don't know that it's going to translate. We've got some sealless sound deadener, and we've also got some Firewall insulation from Heat Shield Products. If you're not familiar with the line of products that they have, man, they've really got some cool stuff. I would say probably a lot of it's aerospace engineered stuff that's been adapted to the automotive industry. This stuff is a self-adhesive reflective barrier with some like insulation behind it. We're going to put that on the Firewall. They say it's actually good up to like 2,000 degrees intermittently and up to like 1,100 degrees sustained. So should really help keep the Firewall temps down. And initially I'd wanted to put air conditioning in this thing, but with all the other stuff that we've got going on in the engine compartment, I just don't think that it's going to be feasible. So lots of sound deadening. The tub has been sprayed with sound control lizard skin and the heat control ceramic, and again all of the sound deadener and heat reflecting properties on the Firewall. As you can see here, we have also taken some time and pulled the cage, got it all sanded down and painted. We hit this with some gray steelite. So first things first, now that the Raptor liner and everything else is cured inside the cab, we are going to throw this cage back in this guy. And we're going to be to a point where we can actually move on to the fun stuff. Fuel system, wiring, brakes. We're making headway. I'm stoked. Let's jump into it. So I think I talked a little bit about this. You can see here, this bar tied to the cage ties back into the front and ties back into this so that this isn't just pushing on sheet metal. You gotta think you got a coil over right there. That you can see just the weight of the truck has already separated those. So definitely need some sort of tie point. So as I set this thing in, I'm actually trying to kind of guide those bolts into position. All right, so we got everything pinned and lined up good enough. We can at least unhook our straps, get the tractor out of there. We'll get a first look at what this cage looks like all painted up. You know, even though we haven't gone all out with fit and finish on this thing, I do want the interior to be decent. And ideally, if I lived out west, I'd just leave fabricated metal and raw metal. We can't do that here. So the fact that stuff is painted and starting to go back on the truck, yeah, I'm stoked. It's another day out here in the shop. Well, end of a day. I've got a couple of hours before I go in. Actually, I probably have an hour before I go in. And I wanted to try to get something done. We're gonna start on the exhaust here pretty soon. And I've laid underneath it, and I think it's not gonna be as terrible as I thought it was gonna be. I would say we're probably gonna end up with a side exit, 3-inch turbo back, no muffler. Hopefully this thing isn't annoying loud. I'm hoping that the turbo is gonna act as enough of a muffler to keep things from just being insane. I don't know. We got to build an exhaust. I think that I'm going to sneak over the frame. I actually got a collapsed piece of 3-inch tubing from stainless headers, from stainless header manufacturer, stainless header products, whichever. But I think a side exit would be cool. Until it's too loud, and then I'll hate it. Anyway, before we do that, I want to get some sound deadening or some heat reflective material on the firewall. So we're going to work on that. And we're also going to put some of the seal-less on this side of the firewall. Yeah, there's some holes. Sound deadener will cover it up. Rock crawler, nobody cares. Also, we ended up with some more goodies. 15-gallon RCI rock crawler fuel cell. This is set up with like a draw style tube for the pickup. You could take this guy out and you could run a hydromat on the bottom of it, or you could build, I think the guys used to run, like old school guys used to run like these weird like Walbro pickups on each corner of the tank. That's kind of not something that you really have to do anymore. If I chose to run this style of pickup with the hydromat on it, I would run a frame mounted pump. But I think with this one being so easy and accessible, like, I think I'm going to run an in-tank pump just so I'm not listening to it. RCI makes a flange that replaces this. It still has the fill in it, and it actually has a mount for an in-tank pump. Use a Walbro pump, and I can run a hydromat on the bottom of that, so it should be good. Like I said, we got a few minutes. Let's get some sound deadening on this guy. So first things, this stuff has been, there's some particles on that. This stuff's been sitting around for a while, and you definitely want to make sure you get all the dust off of it before you try to stick anything that is self-adhesive to it, or you're just asking for it to come off, which this stuff sounds very sandpapery. I may actually have to run a prep pad over that. Like so. That's better. Much better. Again, we just want to make this thing as quiet and as comfortable as we possibly can for a rock crawler. One thing I did see the other day, I'd intended on putting heated seats in this thing. PRP actually sells heated and cooled seats now, so that'll be a welcome little creature comfort. We're going to definitely do cooled seats in this guy. You still watching? If you're still watching, take 2 seconds, reach down there and hit the subscribe button, hit the bell icon for notifications, and leave us a comment. Also hit the thumbs up, give us a like, we'd greatly appreciate it. We're pushing really hard to try to grow this channel. I think we're almost at 9,000 subscribers. This channel has just, the subscribers have been going crazy over the past couple of weeks. I greatly appreciate each and every one of you. We are focusing really, really hard to grow the channel, and we hope to continue to bring you quality content. We also have a Printify store. If you want an old iron off-road OG shirt like the ones you typically see me wear, we have these available in black or gray on our Printify page. And we also have the new Duck Slayer shirt, so hop over there and check it out. I'll leave a link to the Printify shop in the description. Thanks. Oh man, fancy. Better than it deserves. And it's pretty impressive. This is with the lizard skin. Definitely if you're building an old rig, try to use something to take the tin can out of the metal. You will appreciate it later. This stuff doesn't really do much for heat. It helps, but the lizard skin has sound and ceramic, and we've got the reflective stuff going on the firewall, and I'm also gonna probably get pretty silly anywhere near the exhaust underneath it and in the trans-tunnel cover as well. Seems to be where most of the heat tries to come through. Try to keep this thing reasonably cool. So I'm gonna clean the firewall off, and we're gonna see how good this heat shield product stuff sticks. End of a long day. Let's build some exhaust. Got the V-band already mounted on the back of this guy, and I think we're gonna start out with 45-degree piece, and I think we're actually gonna end up with more than a 45. Ideally, it would be nice to get the exhaust down somewhere here, maybe pointed towards the back before the wife hollers supper time. We've got a couple of these swan bins or squirrely bins. I don't even know what they're called, but we've got 180 degree, we've got a 45, and then another 90. So let's chop this guy up. Let's make some exhaust. You can see we got this piece of a pie cut in here, but what it's done is it's actually put us over top of the chassis. So I'm probably gonna end up cutting this back and then turning back in. The main reason why we're doing that is we want to try to create as much room as we possibly can here for plug wires, because obviously we've got spark plugs down in there. And with a 45-degree boot, you know, stuff's gonna get weird in there. I don't want to be smoking plug wires. So I heard my wife holler for dinner. We'll be back at this later. So continuing on from yesterday, I actually snuck back out here after dinner and cut what we had done off. I really didn't like it. It was setting too close to the engine. Wasn't a whole lot of room for plug wires, so let me flip you around here and show you what we got. So here you can see we've actually rotated it more, and then I've got the 45. Instead of kicking it down, it actually kicks it out and down. And we're actually reasonably close to being back in the frame rail. Plenty of room for plug wires. You can see that one. 45-degree plug boot should rotate out about this way. Plug wire should sweep up through here reasonably well. So now what we got to do is I have to turn this back into the frame rail, which I'll probably cut it back a little bit. And I've gone ahead and slid a piece of tubing in there, and that's where we got to get to. And you can see there that floor mount is going to kind of be in the way. Now that I have divulged my ingenious plan to you guys, we're going to put the camera down. We're just going to hammer through this. No talky, just be a bunch of cutting and tacking, and we'll see where we get. So you've heard me mention brake clean a couple of times, and I think I've said this before, but just in case, if you're watching this video, a lot of guys when they're welding will use acetone, especially TIG. I do use brake cleaner, but be very, very, very careful. It needs to be non-chlorinated brake cleaner. You never want to use any kind of chlorinated brake cleaner with welding. It will create a very poisonous gas. So just since I'm using brake cleaner, I thought it was wise to mention that. I'd hate for somebody at home watching this to be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna brake clean some parts off and end up dying. But seriously, non-chlorinated brake cleaner, better safe than sorry. If you don't, if you're not sure, use acetone. Don't use brake cleaner at all. So we're talking about how mandrel bends don't stay purely consistent as you would like to think that they do. Here's a pretty good example. You can see there's a huge gap on that side. Hopefully you can see that. Yeah, you can actually see daylight through that part. So I'm gonna take this guy over to the vise and I'm gonna try to beat this back around. So it's Friday and the day has already ended up getting away from me. I had some repair work to do on a new power steering pump that was new and was no good, if you can imagine that. A new power steering pump that was no good, that I had to put in another new power steering pump that will also probably be no good. Power steering pump starters and alternators, all garbage anymore. Anyway, I've got a few minutes before, Friday date night, and I decided I was actually going to take this time instead of buttoning up some things. I've really got some stuff that I need to be buttoning up on this, but like I said, the day got away from me. I think my time would be better spent finishing up some stuff on the downpipe. Now, I think the next order of business is to get the dump tube from the wastegate plumbed into the downpipe. And to do that, there's some pretty important things. A lot of guys will try to put a piece of stub straight pipe right into them. It's really a bad idea and it can actually cause some issues with the wastegate opening. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to build a really nice merge into the downpipe, get that guy tacked on, and then we can build the pipe out to the wastegate itself. So let's jump into it. So with this already being on a 45-degree angle, I could probably bring a piece of pipe straight into that, but I really don't want to, just in case I end up having issues. So what you want to try to do is you want to try to make the exhaust already start to move in the direction that it needs to go. Obviously, if it was coming in or up into this, there could be a problem with exhaust flow. Exhaust coming out of the downpipe, moving past the tube, it should vacuum it out, but it could hit it and it could back up into the wastegate, causing problems with it opening. So we're going to take this 90 and I'm actually going to I'm going to cut it and cope it, and I'm going to make a nice turn so that the exhaust, when the gate opens, is already moving in the same direction as the downpipe, so we don't create any unnecessary issues. I think we're going to have to take some angle off of it. I have to cut and chop and paste, so let's do that. this in close so you can see the shape of this and how that works. The exhaust is going to hit that and then be transitioned down. And you can see maybe in there, you can't really tell, there's a little bit of lip on the inside edge of that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to weld this thing completely out. And before I cap this, I'm going to sneak in there with a carbide burr and I'm going to open that up all the way so there's no wall or edge to create any kind of weird turbulence or anything. So let's get this guy welded out. I'm going to purge it. I didn't plan on purging it, but it is kind of an open root in there a little bit. The fit up's not perfect. It's pretty good. There is a little bit of an air gap and I don't want that to sugar on the backside, so I am going to go ahead and back purge this thing. I'll get everything set up, we'll get it welded out, and then we'll move on with finishing up what we've got. But pretty much the next piece of the puzzle is a slip coupler. I'll show you what this does. This piece is going to be solid mounted to the back of the turbo, and we're going to have a flex coupler here, or a nice stainless flex bellow. And I don't want this part being attached to the wastegate and this part being attached to the turbo to be rigid to each other, because I'm afraid it'll end up cracking. So I could have put a flex bellow here, but I actually read a lot of guys have problems burning those flex bellows up, running them out of the wastegate. So what they suggested instead was what is called a slip coupler. And basically what this is a 3-piece design that allows the exhaust to move independently. You pretty much have this piece that slips over, and obviously it can still move. And then this piece slips over that. Set it up where there's a little bit of slip left in there, so that as the exhaust contracts and expands, there is some movement in this area, hopefully to eliminate cracking. It may be overkill, I don't know, but we're gonna put this guy in there. So yeah, I'm gonna get this guy welded up. We'll get it all fit back up. We should be pretty much in line. Everything should be really close. Pretty much at that point, all we're gonna have to do is connect the dots. Fingers crossed. Well, I've had about all the exhaust I could stand for a little while. Obviously, we've got to build the rest of the system. We've got all our sweep manufacturing pieces for the steering column. Probably the next thing that we'll do is get the steering column mounted, and I'd say that'll be about all we have for this video. Back at it. What are we doing today? Well, we're going to try to close this video out by getting our steering column mounted. So I managed to sneak in a couple of minutes on it here the other day. We've got our MSD Pro Billet distributor in. We've got some surprises coming on that. We won't talk about that just yet. After we put the MSD distributor in, you see those fancy slots? If you look over there, piece of 1.5 inch tube cut into this. Oh man, we're gonna have defrosters blowing in the roll cage. Pretty cool. I thought so anyway. But yeah. Let's get a steering column mounted up. We ended up with this dude from Sweep Manufacturing, and we've also got a set of their tube mounts. So Sweep Manufacturing is the steering manufacturer. They manufacture all kinds of parts for race cars, rack and pinion stuff, circle track stuff. Just a solid go-to company as far as steering components go. So like I said, we went with their column. We've got their quick release and some of their mount stuff. So let's get this thing in the truck. So we've also purchased our main harness and most of our wiring components. We're going to be doing a lot of stuff with just switches in this panel here. This thing's going to be pretty bare bones. As you can see, my lovely sticker bombed Firewall If you've got any cool stickers that you want to send me to put on there, shoot me a message on Instagram at Old Iron Offroad. I'll send you my mailing address and be happy to represent cool stickers on there. We are planning on running a pretty bare bones wiring harness, but I did have Oxbeam reach out to me about using one of their, I don't know if you're familiar with Oxbeam. It's basically a Chinese version of like a S-Pod or Switch Pros. It's like a little pod that you can change switches and functions and do all kinds of cool stuff with. And then you can use it to run lights or whatever kind of accessories you want. It goes to a control box or a relay box. Anyway, they actually approached me about running their setup. I intended on going with S-Pod or Switch Pros or somebody that had a quality setup. But if you guys at home would be interested in seeing us install some cheaper Chinese stuff just for the sake of reviewing it, let me know. We'll be happy to do it. So yeah, big progress, big progress, big things happening. This thing is moving and shaking. Like I said earlier too, big surprise as far as the fuel injection stuff comes too. So I'll be doing some video on that in the not so distant future as well. Super fancy. So we got the column loosely setting in place. Fired up the plasma table last night. Cut out a blank of one of our 800 column mounts. Obviously I'll have to cut a hole in that when I figure out where the tube is going to go through. But I realized that we really needed some of our brake parts in here before I mounted the plate for the steering column, because it gets pretty tight right here. So I had this piece that I've obviously already previously modified to fit the Willwood setup. And I don't know if I talked about any of the Willwood stuff, but if I did, skip past it. If I didn't, we're going to now. So reached out to Willwood and ended up with this. It's like I can't even remember. It's a 10-to-1 pedal ratio, maybe more. It's a big old dude. And we also ended up with 2 of their 1-inch bore master cylinders to accommodate the 1-ton brakes. Now again, we are staying fully manual with this thing. Just trying to keep this truck simple, like less fluids, less moving parts. And if we can accomplish good braking power with manual components, I think that's what I'll be happy doing. Got that pedal box stripped and painted. It was previously powder coated and it was a nightmare last night stripping all the old powder coat. So got the powder coat off, got it painted. It's been drying all day. We're gonna go ahead and get that bolted to the firewall, get the pedal stuff kind of situated, and then we can proceed on with making that final support for the steering column, and then we can call this video a wrap. And there it is. One more piece of the puzzle. Obviously, we're going to put some different hardware in there. I've just got a self-tapper kind of holding it in place. I'm going to mark everything up, take the guy off, get it sandblasted, painted, back on. I think that's all we've got for this video. I appreciate you at home taking the time to watch these videos. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And as always, enjoy.